Hello, Laziali all over the world. Welcome to another episode of Lazio Lounge. Today, we are focused on the new signing of Lazio, the transfer market of Lazio of this summer. And Alistair, we're going to talk even about the list because there have been a couple of surprises in the 25 players list for the Serie A and for the first time after 30 years for the Champions League. So this will be a very interesting podcast. So, guys, check it out and remember to follow us on the Spreakers, on Spotify, on iTunes. And we are coming even on Amazon. So if you have Alexa or you subscribe to Amazon Podcasts, then search for Lazio Lounge because we are also there. Alistair, plenty of things to talk about because Lazio signed a couple of very interesting players, right? This summer was a very interesting summer transfer deadline for Lazio.
It was, yeah. I mean, it's been a little bit of a roller coaster as well because from start to finish, there's just been so many different storylines emerging. It started off with David Silva, obviously, and the collapse of that deal, and then the potential Kumbula signing and that not coming off, and him going to Roma instead, and then the players that we did get and a lot of very late business, and especially with the players leaving the club, a lot of stuff very, very late. So yeah, it's been quite strange because there was big long periods of inactivity where nothing was really happening, and then when it was busy, it was very busy. But at the end of the day, we've ended up with 7 new players. And yeah, I think it's an interesting mercato to review because people's reactions to it are very different, I think.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It's very interesting. A lot of Lazio fans didn't rate the transfer market highly. I think, Alistair, there is one player that it's really interesting. Someone that comes to Rome, I would say with not high expectation, but seeing what Inzaghi did with, Luis Alberto, Lucas Leiva, and so on, I think Andreas Pereira could be the next guy. He has talent. We said it often in this podcast. One of the things Lazio has been lacking is a real replacement for Luis Alberto. Someone with talent, someone that could keep the quality of the team up when Luis Alberto is not playing. And we said it with the Champions League, Serie A, Coppa Italia, Luis Alberto need a rest. So I think we fill this gap with Andreas Pereira. The question mark is, will he perform when he will be able to play, when he will have to play? Because Manchester United fans were quite happy to see him leaving, right? So there is a little bit of concern there.
Yeah, well, thankfully, happy to say we've been able to speak to a special guest this week to get some insight into Andreas Pereira, and that was Paul Hirst, who's the Manchester United reporter for the Times newspaper. So he's very kindly let us know a little bit more about Andreas Pereira. I asked him a few questions. The first one was, and then we'll play his answers to you. What was the reaction like in Manchester to Pereira leaving, and how will his time there be remembered?
I don't think anyone was surprised at Man United or in the fan base when it was announced that Andreas Pereira was leaving the club for Lazio. I think he'd been living on borrowed time for a bit. He's never really been a first team regular at United. He sort of dipped in and out of the first team, but I think the final nail in the coffin for him was when Bruno Fernandes joined in January. I think he started 25 games last season, but they all came before Bruno arrived. As soon as he came, he locked down that number 10 position, and there was no way for Pereira to win it back. He did have occasional good games for United. I remember even he started in the away game against PSG. So I suppose to that point, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer did trust him for beating big matches. But there's always been a bit of ambivalence towards Pereira from the United fan base. He's never really been an outstanding performer on the pitch. He's always looked a 6 out of 10, a 5.5 out of 10. So I think no one was really gutted that he left. Plus, they've obviously got Bruno, as I said, and Donny van der Beek to fill that number 10 position now. So that they are two much better options than Pereira.
Okay, so this is not very exciting, right, Alistair? Because pretty much Bruno Fernandes arrived and he lost his job, and fans are not very concerned about that. The other thing that is a question mark is that he wasn't consistent. So we need some consistent player. It's true that even Luis Alberto, he played for Liverpool. Well, he hardly played for Liverpool, and then came to Lazio and become one of the best midfielder in Europe. So that's where we have to hope he replicates Luis Alberto, right? But there are some concern.
Yeah, I mean, probably the most worrying line there from him was that he said he was never outstanding. He was always a 6 or a 5.5 out of 10, which is not exactly what we're looking for. But yeah, you might get more time. I did ask a couple more questions to Paul as well. The next one was basically asking what kind of a player Pereira is, and also to let us know if he expects him to be a success in Italy as well.
I mean, there is no doubt that he's a skillful player. On the ball, he's very calm, and his passing range is pretty good. I think one of the problems that United experienced with Pereira is they didn't really know his best position. Mourinho was convinced that he would perform better as a deep line midfielder, like a number 6, just sitting in front of the back four, being almost like a quarterback. And I think during his time at Valencia, he played a little bit on the wing as well. But Pereira definitely sees himself as a number 10, and that's why he didn't, why he ended up leaving United. I think he could be one of those players who comes good after a couple of seasons of regular first team football. That's been the problem at United. He's never been a 40 game player a season. He's just not had that run in the team. So I suppose we'll only really know whether he is a good player after he's had if he does play regularly for Lazio. So it'll be an interesting season for him to see whether he does get that regular football. But honestly, I don't think I see a way back for him, even if he does play regularly in Lazio.
It reminds me a little bit of Hernanes, right? Hernanes were a sort of playmaker in front of the defense, but his skills were more as a trequartista, probably. He has maybe the opposite. So, you know what, Alex? I was thinking that he could play instead of Correa, so maybe play with Luis Alberto. I don't know if this is going to happen, but...
Well, I think the good news there from what Paul said is that he's unlikely. He was essentially saying that Pereira is relatively ineffective playing out of position on the wing or in a deep lying midfield role. But at Lazio, he is more likely to play as a number 10, which, as Paul said, is the role he likes to play in. I mean, he has come, by the signs of it, predominantly to be an alternative to Luis Alberto. So at least, even though he's never reached that consistency, at least he's going to be able to play in a role he's most comfortable with in Rome. The final question I had for Paul was simply was more about off the field. I asked him what kind of a guy Andreas is, and if there were ever any off-field problems at Manchester United, and also if he was a popular figure with the fans.
In terms of Pereira's personality, I don't think he's ever been in any disciplinary trouble at United. I think he's a quite well-behaved guy. He's very kind of light-hearted. You can see him cracking jokes with his teammates in training, etc. And he's quite an intelligent guy. I think he speaks 5 languages, if I remember correctly. So he's very worldly. Obviously, he was born in Belgium, but he's got Brazilian roots. Very much sees himself as Brazilian. and I think he's recently become a father, so he's got responsibilities there as well. So he's quite a rounded individual. I think he did try to reach out to fans and engage quite a lot with them, so I think they appreciated that. But overall, his relationship with the fans was a bit indifferent, just because of the fact that he never really produced on a consistent basis for the team on the pitch.
Well, first of all, thanks a lot to Paul for giving us his insight and letting us know. It doesn't sound like Vittorio. I mean, I guess we already knew he wasn't a star at Manchester United, otherwise we wouldn't be signing him. But overall, from what Paul said, it doesn't sound like they're particularly sad to see the back of him, or that he's rated particularly highly in Manchester. Does that worry you, or do you think this might just be another case of a player not reaching his potential at a club that, let's be honest, kind of does tend to stifle the development of a lot of players?
Yeah, I think what we saw in the last 5 years maybe is that Manchester United buys talented players, but they are not able to make them play at the best. And this is a consistent problem with United. Lukaku, Sanchez, so many good players have arrived in Manchester. Pogba is another incredible example. So I think the most important part of this is the talented player. And this is what Lazio needed, right? Because one thing, Alistair, I was thinking about this in the last days. In the last couple of years, Lazio, after the Luis Alberto thing, Lazio didn't sign talented player. They signed useful players, like Leiva, Lazzari, but not talented players that can make you win a match. Luis Alberto, Correa. Now we get finally Andreas Pereira, who has incredible talent for me, but has to prove it on the pitch. And Inzaghi is quite good in that. I think that if, and this is a big if, Inzaghi approved this signing, and we're going to talk of Vavro maybe later, then I'm really confident, because he find a way to utilize Luis Alberto at his best, Correa, Caicedo, and so on. If Inzaghi trusts the player, or if Inzaghi asks the player, like Hirst, then I'm confident that he will be able to make him perform at his best. This doesn't mean that, hey, Pereira is the new Luis Alberto, he will be a champ, etc. But, at least he's going to have a try. Pedro Neto for me, and he's showing it. He was an incredible player, very talented. Inzaghi simply didn't want him, and he never used it. Let's be honest. Pedro Neto is doing amazing things in Wolverhampton. He's 20, So if Inzaghi approved this signing, then I think he will have a chance, and he will prove his talent.
The one question I have about this signing, though, from an actual business perspective, is, one thing that Paul mentioned was that he's likely to be a kind of player who needs consistent game time to reach his best. But that doesn't seem like something he's very likely to get. I mean, he will get a good amount of games, you would have thought, with all the rotation and so on. But Alberto will be the first choice there, unless he comes in and is absolutely unstoppable. But this deal, he's here for a year on loan. And let's be honest, can we really imagine the buyout if it's actually 27 million? I mean, that would be by a distance the biggest signing Lotito has ever made for Lazio, and it would be for a player who's been brought in as backup rather than as an all-star kind of starting player. So I'm not really entirely sure what the long-term plan was with this deal, other than to just try and get in a kind of creative midfielder as quickly as possible.
But a couple of consideration. First, as Paul said, he doesn't think even if Pereira performs well, he will come back to Manchester. This gives me an impression that if Lazio offers 10, 12, then probably they will find a deal. Let's not forget, the Sanchez situation in Manchester United let Sanchez go very easily. And it doesn't look they are really keen on keeping Andreas Pereira, even because they have Bruno and they have the replacement for Bruno Pereira, so Fernandes, sorry. So they don't need him. The second thing is, we saw in the last couple of matches, even considering last year, that very often Inzaghi is subbing Luis Alberto. And one of the concern I think we all had is every time Luis Alberto was coming off, we didn't have a quality player coming in. You know, we saw Luis Alberto, we saw Parolo, Cataldi, etc. So I think this will continue. But this time, instead of Cataldi maybe coming in, we will see Andreas Pereira, who has quality. So I think he will play a lot of match. I agree with you. He won't start a lot of match, but he will get a lot of minutes for me. So, you know, in the modern football, matches have been decided by substitution. The last 20 minutes are key to win the match. So I think he will have a great chance, a great opportunity. So yeah, I think he will have the time to prove his quality. And then we're going to see if Lazio really will find a way to bring him back, if he performs, obviously.
Right, well, let's move on. I think the big signing, we can agree, was Vedat Muriqi, because this deal, you know, 18 million up front and potential 2 in bonuses is, you know, the next biggest deal Lotito's ever made after Mauro Zarate. Hopefully it's more successful than that one. It was, you know, a position we needed strength in. Inzaghi was wanting a big target man style striker who's good in the air. But let's be honest, this is not a player we know much about. Muriqi's never played in the Europa League or the Champions League. He's only played in the Turkish top flight. We have no idea how successful he's going to be. Are you surprised that this is where the bulk of our money was spent? How do you feel about this signing in general?
Well, let's start with, we asked a Turkish journalist to give us a feedback of Muriqi, so we should be able to get it in the next couple of days, hopefully. So keep posted, because, you know, we could come with an update. This is a player that Lazio was linked to even last year. So it's someone that Tare has been following. I think he has every skill that Lazio was looking for, right? Big physical attacker, very good with the header. And we saw it against Inter. Lazzari put 2 very interesting balls in the box, and Correa, who is terrible with the header, didn't finalize them. So, and the Turkish league is under-evaluated for me. It's quite complicated. It's quite a tough league to compete in, especially if you're playing at high level. So I think he could be a very good signing. Again, let's not forget, Tare never goes for a big name. It's very difficult. He usually rely on these second-level leagues and find the hidden gem, like he did with Milinkovic Savic. So I'm confident. Obviously, the injury situation is going to be very important. He's training with Lazio, so rumors are he should be able to play against Sampdoria, because Ciro Immobile will be away because he has been banned for only 1 match. So I'm really looking forward for him. I thought, yeah, he's going to be the most important signing we did this summer.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite exciting to see Lazio have a big money signing, I guess, because it's not something we do a lot of. And Lotito's often criticised for not spending enough. People have been criticising Lotito again for not spending enough this summer. Well, this is one of the biggest signings Lazio have ever made under Lotito. And on top of that, you know, with all the new players coming in on their salaries and the contract renewals for Immobile and Alberto, you know, it was in the news yesterday that Lazio's wage bill is now over 100 million for the first time ever. So there is money going into this team and building this team, even if it's not splashing out transfer fees left, right, and centre like a lot of our rivals have been. Yeah, I agree with you in that, you know, the lack of experience or the lack of knowledge about what level he can play at doesn't necessarily indicate that he's not ready to play at that level. But the fact of the matter is, we just have no idea until we see him what's going to happen. He does look like a very likable player. It's only a matter of time before he's described as a guerriero, I think, because he's just that kind of big man who throws himself around by the looks of things. So that does add a completely new dimension to Lazio's attack, and I think that's a really promising thing, because we've never had that kind of player under Inzaghi. Some people believed when Caicedo came in he could be that kind of player, but he's really not. He's much more of a link-up player than a target man. So yeah, that would be great. And with the ability of Lazzari and Faris on the wings, hopefully they'll now have something good to aim for in the middle. It's not going to change our strategy, I don't think, to just make us a very route one team, but it does offer another dimension, like I say, which has already been effective in the past with Milinkovic-Savic pushing up into the forward line and winning nod-ons, and that's been a good route to go for Lazio before. So that's for me what makes this exciting, is it's something new for the team.
And as well, it should help Milinkovic-Savic, because before, when Lazio was putting the ball in the box, the main target was Milinkovic-Savic. Now, if you add Murici in the mix, then the defenders cannot focus only on one player; they have to split on two. So this could give Milinkovic more space, more chances. So this is another important factor for the signing of Murici. The other important factor is Fares, because Lulic putting the ball in the box wasn't amazing, especially playing on the left side. Now we should change. And that's why I think Fares is an important signing, because finally we have, even on the other side, a good winger that is able to put the ball in the box. And, I think the biggest friends for Murici, the reason if Murici is going to have success are going to be Lazzari and Fares, because Luis Alberto will go vertical and try to pick Immobile more than Murici. But the wingers will try to put the ball high in the box for Murici. So I think that's going to be one of the key for the success of this new player. So Fares is going to be really important. And I think it's underestimated as well, but I think Fares could be a very important signing for Lazio.
Yeah, I agree. I think, Lazio struggled to find the kind of successor to Senad Lulic in recent years. We've had Johnny, none of these guys have really convinced enough to nail down a starting spot for very long, or to stay at the club for very long. Dermisi, funnily enough, is the only one who's now still in Rome, despite not being wanted and not wanting to be here. So hopefully, I think Fares has a lot more likelihood to be that guy, to be the guy who can actually start to take over from Lulic a bit, because we know he's got good Serie A experience. In the 18-19 season, he had a really great year in that team with Lazzari. So he has, some sort of chemistry with Lazzari on the other side. He's played in a similar system at Spal to how Lazio play. Obviously, last year, very disrupted season with injury problems, so he didn't have much of an impact. But yeah, I think that now he's back. Now he's getting fit again. It could be, like you say, a very important signing, and probably quite good business. If the fee is around 8 million or so, that could turn out to be quite good business. Don't forget, this guy is still only 24 years old, which is really pretty young actually for that kind of fee. So yeah, I'm pretty positive about Fares. What about the two midfielders, I guess? Gonzalo Escalante, we already knew about before this started. We got him in on a free transfer from Eibar. But the big surprise, and a guy we've already talked about a little bit, is Jean-Daniel Akpa-Akpro, who's, I would say, probably already been the surprise of the summer, just because he is involved in the squad. I don't think we really expected him to be named in the squad when he first arrived.
This is the typical Lazio surprise, right? We were all pointing on Keane, who instead is out of the list, and Akpa-Akpro is in, and he already played. I think he played in all 3 matches. So This is an incredible signing, telling you how Inzaghi trusts the player. Now, we're not talking about a youngster because he's 24, if I'm not wrong. So
27, 28 on Sunday.
Okay, so I was nearly there. So no, Javanand is 25. Yeah. So, but he showed his talent. He can be very useful for Lazio. And again, one of the secrets of the transfer market is if the manager trusts the player, then he's gonna play him. And Akpak Pro is starting playing. He's on both lists. So I was surprised because I saw it in the friendly matches, but friendly matches against lower league team doesn't tell you everything. But he played well against Inter. I was surprised there. So I think he can become very useful. Now the question is, with Andreas Pereira coming in, will this reduce the chances of Akpak Pro playing? I'm not sure, because with 5 subs, I think that Inzaghi will rotate a lot. Escalante, we saw that Inzaghi, I think never, I have to check, but I'm going by heart. I think he never allowed Leva to finish a match this season. So this is telling me that he's trying to manage Luis Alberto and Leva this year more carefully, and having the option of Andreas Pereira and Akpa Pro and Escalante gives Inzaghi this opportunity. So I think they will play. I'm not sure they will start a lot of matches, but I think that, again, they are not signing that give you the front page of Corriere dello Sport, but you win on the pitch, not on the Corriere dello Sport. So I think they can be useful.
Yeah, and I already feel like it's an upgrade on bringing, all 3 games so far this season, Escalante and Akpak Pro have come off the bench into the midfield and provided good energy, good technical ability. And I already feel like that's a bit of an upgrade on last season, where we would Cataldi and Parolo to come on, basically. Akpak Pro, I find an interesting guy. I did have a quick look at kind of his career, and 5 or 6 years ago, he was being thought of as this really promising young prospect. I mean, he went to the World Cup with Ivory Coast in 2014 and won the African Cup of Nations with them in 2015, even though I have to admit he didn't actually play in either of those tournaments. He was just in the squad. But he was at Toulouse back then, kind of playing in France, and he got this horrific injury that he was out for an entire season, ended up getting released, and that was when Salernitana picked him up. He was a free transfer in, I think it was February 2018. So yeah, I mean, at Salernitana, he's basically been kind of restoring his career by the looks of things, doing quite well there quietly, and all of a sudden they've spotted that he's ready to make the step up. So it'd be an interesting one to look at. I mean, he's on a 2-year contract, so it's fairly low risk. If it goes well, I'm sure they'll extend it. But if it doesn't, then it's not the end of the world. And yeah, Escalante, I think, is just finally. We've already talked about Pereira and Morici, and the good thing is, with the 3 of those players, we finally now have valid options to step in for Leva, for Alberto, and for Immobile, and that's something we've been crying out for. Whether they'll be good enough to play at the same level is another question, obviously. But the thing is, they can naturally fill in. Like Morici can play as a number 9; that's his actual position. Pereira can actually play as a number 10. It's not just someone being forced to play there. And Escalante, the good thing about him is that he seems like a really versatile midfielder. So I think that's where Inzaghi wants to be, that kind of alternative to Leva, but he's also able to step in and play as a mezzala or even closer to the strikers if he's needed to as well. So I think he's going to be, as a free transfer, he looks like a very kind of smart piece of business.
Okay, let's go to the negative side, right? Let's talk about the defense, because there's a player we don't talk about a lot that it's out, and we were all hoping to sign a very good defender. Instead, Wesley hurt his back. This is the first time Lotito calls back a player he sold. It looks like Inzaghi wanted him. Now, when he left Lazio, he pretty much didn't do anything else. So we will get the uprising defender we saw the last year of Lazio, or we will see the player who hardly played in the last 3 years. This is a big question mark. And Alazar was surprised seeing the list. Radu out, Bastos out. We have 5 defender on in the list with Armini.
Yeah, I mean, there was a bit of an uproar about that to begin with. You know, it's if people still aren't aware of it, it is worth reiterating that, you know, Lulic and Radu are off the list, but they are allowed to make 2 changes to that list. So the intention is that they will be brought back in once they've recovered from injuries. And it looks like probably Vavro and Anderson will then drop out, which is, I think, ridiculous. To sign Vavro for, what, 12 million only a year ago and then not even have him in your squad list is just pretty shocking, I think. But yeah, I mean, when I saw this, I felt like marching up there with a Justice for Bastos placard, getting outside Formello, making my feelings heard. Bastos has been robbed. You can't bring back Wesley Hook to take Bastos's position. Shocking. I don't know. I still don't really know what to think about Wesley Hook because, you know, he is a left-footed centre-back. That is what we wanted, but nobody's very excited about it, and for good reason. You know, he was sold a couple of years ago, and he only lasted 6 months at Southampton. He did play all the time when he first got there, but then I think it was when Ralph Hasenhüttl was appointed by Southampton, he took one look at Hood and was like, nope, not having this. And so he went on loan to Celta Vigo, and then last year he was on loan in Belgium, and his career is kind of drifting. So again, you know, it's kind of a low-risk move because in the sense that if it goes badly, you know, he goes back to Saints. If it goes well, you have the chance to re-sign a player who you sold for, what, 17, 18 million euros 2 years ago for like a quarter of that price, basically. But let's be honest, that this was the position of greatest weakness, of greatest need for reinforcements, and that's not enough, is it? It's really not enough.
But the concerning point, Alistair, is that not only it's probably not enough, but seeing the list, why get rid of Bastos? You have, in the list, you have Vavro, who could get out, Acerbi, Luis Felipe, Hurt. Then who do we have? You know, Armini could be added.
Patrick.
And Patrick. 6 with Armini, who hadn't played a minute. So basically 5. That does mean that Parolo now is a central defender, and so we are back to 6. But at that point, wasn't it better to keep Bastos? And then why, if Rado comes back, you take off Vavro? Because I don't think the numbers are enough, especially looking at the injury situation, right? Vavro is injured prone, Radu is injured prone, Luis Felipe is injured prone. We're already taking out 3 defenders. I mean, against Sampdoria, we are again numbered in defense. I don't understand it.
Yeah, I mean, and this is one of the things, you know, one of the questions we've got, I'll try and start bringing in a few more of these, but well, Philip Pizzano for a start asked us what's our opinion of Holt. I think we've just done that, but and are you concerned about our defence? Yes, we're doing that. Oliver Pill said, missing out on David Silva and Kumbula, which of the 2 could have been the best addition to our squad? And I think that's quite an interesting question, because there's absolutely no doubt in the world that David Silva is a better player than Barash Kumbula, light years ahead. But what would have been more useful to our squad building for the summer? Having someone like David Silva or having someone like Kumbula? It's quite an interesting question. What do you think?
I think David Silva. I'm still not convinced of Kumbula. I saw him play last year when there was rumors of him linked to Lazio, and he made a couple of mistakes that if Patrick would have made, the Lazio fan would have all chasing till Formello, you know. But it's Verona, no one noticed. Yeah, Kumbula is a very talented player. There are these players that are very, very promoted by fans, by newspaper and so on. I'm not saying he's bad. I'm saying that he didn't improve enough at the moment. So I think a Champions League experience like David Silva, obviously with the motivation, you know, coming to Rome to win, would have been a very interesting option. Said this, I think Lazio should have signed a very good defender. I hope he could come back and prove that he's that type of defender. I'm not convinced.
Well, the other question, number 2, that Oliver asked us was about this rumor that the FIGC might raise the squad limit from the maximum 17 players trained abroad to 20, and Ezequiel Garay is a free agent, and I think this is just a classic case of, you know, Lazio journalists looking at who's a free agent and then saying, how about this? But he has been linked with Lazio. He's asked us, would it be worth signing him, or could Bastos do the job? I mean, how much would that change things? You know, if the squad is raised, the squad limit's raised, is it just a case of reintegrating the guys who've been left out, do you think? Or should Lazio be trying to chase someone like Garay or other free agents?
Let's start saying that it doesn't make sense if you close the transfer market and then 3 days later you said, okay, you can sign other 2 players. Well, the transfer market just closed, you idiot. You know, so, you know, this is typical Italian things, right? I would go back with Bastos. He knows the system. He's ready. He's in Rome, etc., etc. Instead of signing another player who you know how fit it is, you don't know if he fits with Inzaghi point of view, etc. The Bastos thing, Alistair, it's bustling. He played against Inter. He came in. So what's going on? Inzaghi doesn't trust him and was desperate on Sunday, or it's something? Is the player asked to leave? It's the club have problem with Bastos? I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. Like Vavro, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, the one remaining one we've not talked about yet is Pepe Reina, the final signing. I mean, we did kind of discuss a little bit in the last podcast about the fact that, you know, we are probably going to hear more voices calling for Strakosha to get dropped now this season, because we actually have a second goalkeeper who can compete. And yeah, let's not forget, I mean, I know he spent a lot of time on the bench when he was at Milan, but he did spend the second half of last season as a first choice goalkeeper in the Premier League for Aston Villa. So although he's 38, he isn't just ready to retire by the looks of things. He is here to play. And I think things like, you know, I saw, you know, some people would kind of roll their eyes at this idea of him having experience and the effect that'll have. But it's been talked about by Strakosha himself, by Inzaghi, the fact that does help, and that is, you know, genuinely something that makes him a valuable asset addition to this squad, is that he knows how the Champions League works. He's played at the very top level. He's played international football, Champions League football. He's won trophies. This is a guy with far more experience of what it takes to actually win games and compete in important matches than almost anyone else in this Lazio squad.
Yeah, I totally agree. And we always said it, right? Lazio need a second goalkeeper with experience that can push Strakosha, help him even in difficult situation, and at the same time giving a little bit of rest. Every year we finish with Strakosha very tired, maybe a little bit injured. He had back problems, etc. Now with Reina, I hope he's going to play some matches. I'm not sure he's going to play in Champions League, but Coppa Italia, maybe in some easier matches of Serie A as well. And this could be important for Strakosha because he can rest as well. He can improve. He can learn from experienced goalkeeper, etc. So I really think this could be another good signing. Another signing that doesn't give you the first page of Corriere Sport. But, you know, I think these are important signings that can help the squad. So I prefer signing, what can I say, Andreas Pereira than Pastore that gives you the front page of Corriere Sport. So, and I think this is how Lazio is moving, or has been moved since Lotito bought the club. So, yeah, I think overall the transfer market wasn't that bad. I think the most questioning thing is the defense, and selling Lukaku and Johnny and having as replacement of Fares, Oli, Javan Anderson is a little bit concerning.
How about this? We got Maddie said, with injury-prone players at the back and a lack of quality backups, we need to just pray for the starters to stay healthy. I'm not sure I agree with that, actually, because I think that the one thing people complained about and criticised Lazio most for last season was the lack of depth in the squad, the injury proneness, and that came to light at the end of the last season when everything fell to pieces. And I think that, to a large extent, has been fixed because we've kept that squad together. We've kept a squad that was good enough to be 1 point off the top of the league in February without losing anyone of importance. And we've added an extra 7 players, many of whom have experience at the top level, or at least the potential to improve this squad in a way that our backup options last season didn't. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind that the quality of the squad as a whole has improved. So I still think, obviously, that the starting 11 is stronger than the rest of the squad. And it's not such a strong squad that we can rotate people in and out at will and stay at the same level. But I do disagree with the notion that we just need to pray for that same 11 players to be fit all the time, because I think we have more options now.
We have more options, but we have a Champions League that is more competitive than the Europe League. I think Inzaghi has to rotate. And we saw it already last year in Europe League, and things didn't go very well. But I think this year he has to do it, and obviously at a higher level. So I agree with you. We have more depth. Akpa Pro is a great, new addition. Let's not forget Cataldi that did very, very well last year, and so on. I think now left back position when Lulic doesn't come back, that's a question mark. And central defenders, we have to hope that Luis Felipe come back as soon as possible, because he's a really talented player, and let's be honest, Lazio doesn't have the money to buy another talented defender like Luis Felipe, but probably even other teams doesn't have it. So every team has key star players, and without them they are less strong. So yeah,
exactly. The Lazio aren't unique in that way. If Juventus lose Cristiano Ronaldo and Paulo Dybala and Giorgio Chiellini at the same time, then they're going to be severely weakened. That's just, obviously they've got better options on the bench, but they're not going to be as good as their starting players. That's kind of how it works. In terms of the questions I should just say there were a few people who just asked us generally what we thought about the transfer market. Richard Haig, Tifosi Down Under, Philip Pizzano. So thanks for your questions. Hopefully we've been kind of answering that. One of the other ones from Tifosi Down Under, and this is probably a good one to kind of finish up on before we, give a kind of grade to the market as a whole, was basically if we think enough has been done to give Inzaghi a squad that can push for the top 4. And that was always going to be the question coming out of this market. So how do you feel now?
I think there are question marks, but I have to say even in other teams there are question marks. I don't see a perfect team in Serie A. Even Juventus, for me, has, and we saw it against Roma, right? Juventus played poorly against Roma. So there's not a perfect team. Obviously, if you're asking me if is Lazio the best team, no, I think Inter has more depth. Napoli is very interesting, but I think Lazio can fight for the 4th position. Don't think for the Scudetto, but I would say for the 4th position, yes.
Yeah, I don't think too many people, I would hope anyway, were going into this season hoping for a Scudetto challenge. It was a bit of a one-off, I think. Look, I wrote an article about the transfer market and my take on it and my review of it this morning, which you can find on my Twitter feed if you're interested. But basically, I was weighing up the pros and cons because I think there's a lot of... This is
not paid advertising. Sorry.
So I think there's a lot of things we can be happy about. The fact that the squad has stayed together. We've not made any high-profile sales. The depth has been improved. The squad is better now than it was at the start of the market. There are more players. There's a better quality of player in the squad. We finally got backups for Immobile, Alberto, Lulic, Lucas. And, money has been invested in. I know there's not been too many big splashing signings other than Mariki, but, a lot of investment's gone into contract renewals as well. But then we've got in the cons list, the David Silva fiasco was a disaster. Kumbula, in my opinion, was a real missed opportunity because it was there for the taking. The newest signings, they came too late to the squad. So we've had 3 games already without being able to really use them. And most of all, the centre-back issue is still a big one. But then on top of that, we've ended up, although we've managed to get rid of a lot of players like Wallace and Badel and Berisha and Adekanye's gone and all this, we've got 7 players who are still at the club who aren't in Inzaghi's plans. So that's a con as well for me. So I'm going to go, after all this, with 6 out of 10.
Okay, I was going to ask you if we are going to do the grades like English, high school or Italian. I would say yes, 6.5 probably. With a better defender, it could have been 7.5.
Yeah, like I think it was fine. Basically, is my big review of the Mercato. I think it's fine. It's we are better than we were before, but it's not got anyone too excited. Better. It's not been a disaster, but it's not been brilliant.
Yeah, with the Champions League, we were hoping a little bit better, but the team is better. We have more depth. Probably again, it's all rely on Simone Inzaghi. If Inzaghi didn't want Andreas Pereira, then I don't think he's ever going to play. But I think overall the team is better. So yeah, we were hoping something else, especially after the David Silva thing or Kumbulla. But yeah, this is Lazio. It's not a big surprise. And guys, after seeing this podcast, tell us what's your rating for this summer transfer of Lazio. We're going to read them in the next podcast. And again, thank you everybody for listening. Remember, rate and review on iTunes. Follow us on Spreaker, Spotify, Amazon. Now we are there. And if you want to, and on our YouTube channel as well. And if you want to support our podcast, patreon.com/Lazio Lounge. Thank you, Alistair.
Cheers.
Ciao, ciao.